Cane toads are on the march, sweeping across northern Australia into the wilds of the Kimberley. It's been disastrous for local wildlife, but local rangers are taking on the toads with the help of science.
In 1935, Australia made a decision that would come to haunt the continent for decades. Faced with a devastating pest, the gray-backed cane beetle, which was ravaging sugarcane fields, the Bureau of Sugar Experiment Stations in Queensland proposed a solution that seemed almost elegant. They decided to introduce a natural predator, the cane toad. The plan was simple: import the toads from South America, where they were known to feed on pests. But, as with many well-intentioned ecological interventions, the outcome wasn't as expected.
Well, rainy season is well underway, and with that comes cane, or is it bufo toads or buffo toads?
Yeah, bufo toads.
Bufo toads. Yeah. Either way, they're not only ugly, but they're also invasive and they're poisonous.
By the mid-20th century, instead of eradicating pests, the toads themselves had become a monstrous, invasive species, spreading rapidly across Australia. For nearly 90 years, nothing worked to stop them. Chemical deterrents, mass culling, and even government programs failed to slow the advance of the toads. They were large, fast, and their toxic skin made them lethal to predators. The situation seemed hopeless, until scientists discovered a surprising ally in the war against the toads, one that was already living right under their noses.
The struggle to contain the march of cane toads across Australia is one that's frustrated scientists for years. Now a team from the University of Sydney believes it's come up with a way of using the toad's own poison against it to interrupt the reptile's prolific breeding.
The unstoppable invasion. When the toads were first released into the Queensland fields, there were only 101 of them. They were meant to control the cane beetle, but they never even touched the beetles. The beetles lived high on the cane stalks, out of the toads' reach. But the toads didn't care. They found new prey in Australia's abundant food sources. Insects, frogs, lizards, small mammals, and anything they could overpower became their target. What started as a small mistake in Queensland quickly exploded into an ecological disaster. Female cane toads can lay up to 30,000 eggs per season, and they can breed multiple times a year. The population didn't grow, it exploded. Within just a few decades, the toads had spread across the entire northern coast of Australia, moving westward, wiping out native predators in their wake. In the early years, they moved slowly, about 30 feet per year. But something unexpected happened. The toads were evolving rapidly. The individuals on the front lines of the invasion, the ones pushing the furthest, were being selected for speed, endurance, and greater range. Within just a few decades, the toads were evolving longer legs, allowing them to move up to 30 meters per year, significantly increasing the pace of their spread. A deadly weapon, the toad's toxic defense. One of the reasons the toads were so successful in their invasion was their deadly defense mechanism, bufotoxin, a potent toxin secreted from the toad's parotid glands. When a predator bites a cane toad, the toxin floods the mouth, immediately affecting the predator's heart, shutting it down. Snakes, lizards, crocodiles, and monitor lizards, apex predators in Australia, were all vulnerable to this toxin. Within minutes, a predator could be dead. The cane toad had no natural predators to contend with, and as a result, it wreaked havoc on the native species. Populations of quolls, a fierce cat-sized marsupial predator, dropped by over 90% in some areas, while monitor lizard populations vanished from regions they had occupied for millions of years. Even saltwater crocodiles were found dead, with toads lodged in their jaws, unable to escape. The collapse of these predator populations had cascading effects throughout the food chain. Prey species that were once kept in check exploded in number, and the delicate balance of the ecosystem was disrupted in a matter of years. The failed attempts to stop the invasion. Australia tried everything to stop the cane toad invasion. There were mass culling programs, physical barriers, trapping initiatives, and even pheromone research to try to deter the toads. But nothing worked. The toads' numbers were simply too large, and they kept moving faster every year. Researchers struggled to find a solution to the invasion that seemed to have no end. In some areas, it looked like the toads were unstoppable, consuming entire ecosystems and leaving devastation in their wake. Despite decades of effort, the toads continued to spread. At one point, it seemed as if the only way to deal with the problem was to accept that Australia had lost the war. Their relentless march across the continent appeared inevitable. Local wildlife was being pushed to the brink of extinction, and even the most optimistic scientists were running out of ideas. But in 2019, a breakthrough discovery changed everything. Something small and unexpected had the potential to turn the tide in the battle against the toads. The tiny predator, meat ants, to the rescue. In an unexpected twist, scientists began noticing that while large predators were dying off from the toad's toxin, something much smaller was thriving. Meat ants, native to Australia, were not only surviving but actively swarming and attacking cane toads. What was even more surprising was that the meat ants were completely immune to the toad's deadly toxin. Unlike vertebrate predators that ingested large doses of bufotoxin, the ants were biting the toad's external skin, consuming tiny doses of the toxin without suffering any ill effects. This revelation led researchers to ask a crucial question. Why hadn't the meat ants stopped the toads years ago? The answer lay in the ants' biology and evolutionary history. While toads had evolved to rely on their toxin for protection against larger predators, they hadn't faced organized, coordinated attacks from insects like the meat ants. The ants' aggressive and collective nature made them a perfect natural predator for the cane toad, and the toads had no defense against them. The ants' ability to act as a coordinated unit, overwhelming the toads in numbers, was something that was previously underestimated. A simple yet brilliant solution, using ants to control toads. With the discovery that meat ants could target and overwhelm the cane toads without succumbing to the toxin, scientists devised a new strategy. Instead of attempting to eradicate the toads directly, they focused on amplifying the ants' natural behavior. By introducing targeted baiting, scientists used cat food to attract the ants to specific breeding grounds where the toads were most vulnerable. At the right moment in the toad's life cycle, when they were most defenseless, the meat ants swarmed the toads, attacking in numbers too large for the toads to handle. Within a short time, entire toad populations were wiped out from specific areas. The success of this method was startling. In some locations, over 98% of the toad metamorphs, the young toads emerging from the water, were killed by the ants before they even had a chance to grow into adulthood. Each adult female that was prevented from surviving meant 30,000 fewer eggs in the next breeding season. The aftermath, the impact of the ants' intervention. As the baiting program continued, researchers began to notice something remarkable. The ecosystems that had been devastated by the toads were slowly starting to recover. Monitor lizards, which had vanished from large parts of the Northern Territory, began to return to their original habitats. Quail populations, once nearly wiped out, began to repopulate areas where they had been absent for years. The native frogs, which had been displaced by the toads, started to appear again in the ponds that had been targeted by the meat ants. These signs of recovery proved that the intervention was working. While eradication was never the goal, given the toads' entrenched presence in Australia, suppression was making a difference. The numbers of cane toads were dropping, and native species were finding room to thrive again. The long-term effects, a new strategy for invasive species. The success of using meat ants to target the cane toads represents a breakthrough in the fight against invasive species. Unlike previous attempts to control invasive species by introducing new predators or using chemical deterrents, this method worked by leveraging the natural behaviors of an already existing predator, an organism that was immune to the toad's toxins and capable of attacking in large numbers. By introducing a controlled intervention that worked with nature rather than imposing an external solution, scientists were able to disrupt the toad's growth without causing harm to the surrounding environment. This approach could have far-reaching implications for the management of invasive species around the world. It challenges the traditional methods of ecological intervention and opens the door to more targeted, effective strategies in wildlife conservation. The story of the cane toad invasion in Australia is a cautionary tale about the dangers of introducing non-native species without fully understanding their potential impact. But the unexpected intervention of meat ants proves that sometimes the smallest predators can make the biggest difference. What started as a disastrous ecological mistake has led to a groundbreaking strategy that could change the future of managing invasive species. The toads may have been unbeatable for 90 years, but thanks to a tiny predator and a bit of ingenuity, nature has started to fight back. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing discoveries.